You're standing in front of Parliament, tailored suit, gold watch chain. Members of the House nod at you like you belong here. And you do. But 10 minutes from now, a man with a scar across his throat is going to walk through those oak doors and say one sentence that burns everything you've built to the ground. We'll get there. But first, you need to understand how a barefoot kid from the filthiest street in England ended up owning half of it. 1889. You're 8 years old and you haven't eaten in 2 days. Your home, if you can even call it that, is a back-to-back terrace in the industrial guts of Birmingham. Soot-stained bricks, open sewers running between the houses. The kind of place where the smoke from the factories blocks out the sun so completely that some kids on your street have never seen a blue sky. Your father's gone, died coughing up black dust from the metalworks when you were 5. You still remember the sound, abai? That wet, rattling cough that went on for months before it finally stopped. Your mother takes in washing and mending, working 18-hour days just to keep you and your 2 younger brothers from the workhouse. That's the threat that hangs over every family on this street. The workhouse, a place where they separate mothers from children and work you until you break. You survive by running errands for the older boys on the corner. They're a crew, maybe 15 of them, and they run a small operation, pickpocketing at the market, stealing copper wire from the factory yards, fencing whatever they can get their hands on. The leader is a 17-year-old called Freddie Marsh, missing 2 fingers on his left hand from a press machine accident. He's the closest thing to a father you've got. Freddie teaches you the rules. Never steal from your own street, never talk to the police, and most importantly, never ever get caught alone by the boys from the Garrison Lane crew. They're the other gang. Bigger, meaner, run by. A family called the Prices, and they want control of everything between the canal and the rail yard. By the time you're 12, you're not running errands anymore. You're running jobs, small ones at first, acting as lookout while the older boys rob a warehouse. Then bigger ones. You learn how to pick a lock faster than most people can use a key. You learn how to move through the back alleys of Birmingham like a ghost. And you learn something else, something that changes everything. You learn that information is worth more than anything you could ever steal. See, the factories run on schedules, payroll days, shipment arrivals, guard rotations. And the foremen, they talk. They talk at the pub, they talk at the betting shop, they talk at the penny gaff shows. All you have to do is listen. You start selling schedules and tip-offs to Freddie, and suddenly you're the most valuable kid in the crew. Not the strongest, not the toughest, the smartest. And that's when Freddie pulls you aside one night and says something you'll never forget. "I'm done, lad. My lungs are going the same way as your dad's. This crew's yours now if you want it." You're 15 years old. You don't hesitate, not for a second. First thing you do is change the uniform. Every crew in Birmingham has a look. Flat caps, heavy boots, dark wool coats that all blend together in the factory smoke. But yours is going to be different. You sit at your kitchen table one night with your grandmother's sewing shears and a handful of industrial razor blades. You carefully stitch them into the peak of your cap. 2 of them sewn flat against the brim, nearly invisible unless you know what to look for. Your boys see it and they all want one. Within a week, every member of your crew is wearing a blade-lined cap. It's not just for show. The first time the Garrison Lane boys try to jump one of your runners near the canal, your lad Tommy Swift whips his cap off and drags it across the attacker's forehead. The wound isn't deep, but it bleeds like a river, and the message travels across Birmingham faster than any telegram. Don't touch the Sheldon Heath boys. That's what they start calling you, the Razor Caps. You grow the crew from 15 to 40 in 6 months, not by force, by offering something nobody else does. Structure. You divide the territory into sections. Each section has a captain. Each captain reports to you every Sunday at the back room of the Crown and Anchor pub. You set rules. No robbing women, no hurting children, no fighting drunk. Anyone who breaks the rules answers to you personally. The money comes in 3 streams. Protection. Every shop and stall in your territory pays a weekly fee, and in return, they genuinely don't get robbed. You make sure of it. Fencing. Your boys move stolen goods through a network of pawnbrokers and secondhand dealers that stretches from Birmingham to Wolverhampton. And the newest one? Gambling. Illegal card. Games and dice runs in basement rooms where factory workers blow their wages every Friday night. But you want more. And more means dealing with the people above you. The legitimate businessmen who profit from the slums while pretending they don't exist. Men like Arthur Whitmore, a factory owner who runs 6 metalworks and sits on the city council. Whitmore uses gangs when it suits him. Strike-breaking, intimidation, making problems disappear. You approach him with a proposition. Your crew handles his dirty work. In exchange, he gives you access to something you've never had, the horse racing tracks. Whitmore laughs at first. A 16-year-old kid in a flat cap wants access to the races, but you've done your homework. You know that Whitmore's main competitor, a man named Reginald Hale, has been undercutting his steel contracts. You hand Whitmore a ledger you stole from Hale's office. Proof of tax fraud. Whitmore stops laughing. He shakes your hand. And just like that, you're in the racing game. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. And honestly, this is the part that changed everything. Horse racing in Victorian England isn't just a sport. It's the biggest illegal gambling operation in the country. Thousands of pounds change hands at every meet, and the whole thing is ripe for manipulation. You start small. Your boys work as stable hands, track runners, and bookmakers' assistants at the local courses. They feed you information: which horses are injured, which jockeys are in debt, which trainers have a drinking problem. You use that information to place bets through a network of runners who spread the money across dozens of bookmakers, so nobody spots the pattern. Then you go bigger, way bigger. You figure out that the real money isn't in betting on fixed races. It's in controlling the bookmakers themselves. See, every racecourse has a dozen independent bookies standing on wooden crates, shouting odds, taking bets from the crowd. They're making a fortune, and they've got zero protection. You approach them with a choice. Pay you a cut and operate under your protection. Or don't. And watch what happens to their pitch, their runners, and their kneecaps. Within a year, you control the book at 3 major courses. The money is staggering, more than your entire protection and fencing operations combined. You're pulling in hundreds of pounds a week at a time when a factory worker earns less than 2. But money this big attracts attention, and not just from other gangs. A detective named Inspector Calder starts sniffing around. He's not like the local coppers you've been bribing for years. Calder is Scotland Yard, sent up from London specifically to crack down on organized crime in the industrial cities. He's methodical, patient, and he's already turned 2 of your bookmaker contacts into informants. You find out because you've got your own informant, a clerk in the local police station who copies. Reports for you. When you see Calder's name on a wire requesting surveillance on the Crown and Anchor, you know you've got maybe 2 weeks before he has enough to bring charges. So you do something nobody expects. You walk into Calder's office, alone. No weapon, no backup, just you and a folder full of carefully forged documents. And you sit down across from him and you say, "I hear you're looking for the man who runs the races. What if I told you it's someone much bigger than me?" You give Calder a name. Reginald Hale, the same man whose ledger you stole years ago, except now you've spent months planting evidence that connects Hale to a much larger fraud. Rigged contracts, bribery, and a network of illegal gambling that makes your operation look like a church raffle. Calder takes the bait. Within 3 months, Hale is arrested, tried, and sentenced to 8 years in prison. And you're the anonymous source who helped Scotland Yard bring down a major criminal. Calder doesn't like you, but he respects you. And more importantly, he leaves you alone. You're 22 years old. You run the betting on every race course in the Midlands. You own 2 pubs, a warehouse, and a row of terraced houses that you rent back to the families who used to be your neighbors. You wear a 3-piece suit now. Your mother doesn't take in washing anymore. Your brothers are in school, real school. But remember that thing about information being the most valuable currency? You're about to learn that it works both ways. Arthur Whitmore comes to you with a new proposition. He's running for a proper parliamentary seat, wants to move from city council to Westminster, and he needs you to make it happen. This is the moment you've been waiting for, not because you care about Whitmore's career, because you realize something that none of the other gang leaders in England have figured out. Real power doesn't come from controlling streets. It comes from controlling the people who make the laws. You throw everything into Whitmore's campaign. Your boys distribute pamphlets. They encourage people to attend rallies. They make sure the opposition candidates' events are poorly attended. Broken cartwheels blocking roads. Sudden pub fights drawing crowds away from speeches. Nothing violent enough to make the papers, just enough to tip the scales. Whitmore wins by 600 votes. And the very first thing he does as a member of parliament is introduce you to his colleagues. Not as a gang leader, obviously, as a community organizer and businessman. You get a new suit, a proper one, Savile Row. You learn to soften your accent just enough. You start attending dinners, charity events, garden parties, and you start making deals. Here's how it works. The politicians need things done that they can't be seen doing. Labor disputes quieted. Business competitors pressured. Embarrassing situations cleaned up. You become the man who handles problems. And every favor you do creates a debt. Every debt gives you leverage. Every piece of leverage brings you closer to what you actually want. A seat at the table, not as a guest, as an equal. By 27, you're so embedded in the political machine that you're practically untouchable. You've got 3 members of parliament who owe you favors. You've got a police superintendent on your payroll. You own legitimate businesses, a transport company, 2 factories, a string of betting shops that operate just inside the boundaries of the law. And then you do something that shocks everyone. You run for office yourself, not parliament, not yet. A seat on the Birmingham City Council. The same council that 15 years ago could have thrown your family into the workhouse. The establishment tries to stop you. They dig into your past. They find rumors, lots of them, but that's all they are, rumors. Because you've spent a decade making sure every piece of real evidence either disappeared or points at someone else. The newspapers call you a self-made man from humble origins, which is true. They just don't know the whole story. You win the council seat in a landslide. The people from your old neighborhood turn out in numbers the city has never seen. Because whatever else you are, you've done something no politician has ever bothered to do. You fixed the sewers, you funded a school, you put gas lamps on streets that had been dark for 50 years. You're 29. A councilman, a business owner, a criminal kingpin hiding in plain sight. You've beaten the slums, beaten the rival gangs, beaten the police, beaten the political machine. There's nobody left to fight, except yourself. It starts with nightmares, not about the violence. You've made your peace with that years ago. The nightmares are about the workhouse, about your father's cough echoing down the hallway, about an 8-year-old boy standing in a gutter with no shoes, watching the smoke block out the sun. You wake up soaked in sweat, gasping, reaching for something that isn't there. You start drinking. Whiskey, mostly. A glass after dinner becomes a bottle before lunch. Your wife, a woman named Clara, the daughter of a shipping merchant, starts sleeping in a separate room. Your boys on the street notice you're distracted, sloppy. For the first time in your life, you're making mistakes, and that's when the prices come back. Remember the Garrison Lane crew? The family that ran the other side of Birmingham when you were a kid? You thought they were finished, pushed out, done. You drove them out of the city years ago and never looked back. But the youngest son, Daniel Price, has been quietly building his own operation in the East End of London, learning, growing, and now he's back. Not for territory, not for money, for revenge, pure and simple. Price doesn't come at you with razors and fists. He comes at you with paper, documents, real ones. Evidence connecting you to the Hale Frame-Up, witness statements from men you thought were loyal, financial records you thought were destroyed, and he's feeding all of it to a journalist at the Times. You've got maybe a month before the story breaks. If it does, you lose everything. The council seat, the businesses, the political connections, your family, everything. So here you are, back at Parliament. That tailored suit, that gold watch chain, members of the House nodding at you. And somewhere behind those oak doors, Daniel Price is about to walk in and burn your world down. You've got 3 choices. You can run. Take Clara and whatever cash you can carry and disappear to America. Start fresh. New names, new life. You can fight. Use every ounce of leverage and every favor you're owed to discredit Price and bury the evidence forever. Or you can do the thing that the barefoot kid in the gutter would never have believed possible. You can tell the truth. You stand up in the council chamber. Every seat is full. The gas lamps are hissing. The press gallery is packed. Price is in the back row, arms folded, smiling, waiting for you to crumble. You take a breath, and you start talking. You tell them everything: the pickpocketing, the razor blades, the rigged races, the framed competitors, the bribes, the protection rackets, the threats, all of it. 20 years of lies, stripped bare in 45 minutes. The room is dead silent. You say one last thing. Every man in this chamber has done things he's not proud of. The difference between us is that I just told you mine. You walk out, through the marble lobby, past the portraits of men who built their fortunes on the same kind of dirt you did, down the stone steps, into the London fog. Behind you, the shouting has already started. Your political career is over. Prosecution is almost certain. Everything you built is collapsing in real time. But here's the thing nobody expected, including you. You feel free. For the first time since you were 8 years old, standing in that gutter with no shoes, you are not afraid. Not of the workhouse, not of the prices, not of prison, not of anything. You button your coat against the cold, pull your flat cap down low, the one without razor blades, you gave those up years ago. And you walk into the fog alone, the gas lamps making halos in the mist ahead of you. Because whoever you were before this moment doesn't matter anymore. The only question left is, who are you going to be now?